This is Toumani Camara, and it's time to open up the briefcase with Casey Holdahl.
Greetings, Blazer fans, and welcome to The Briefcase, presented by Spirit Mountain Casino. Episode 150, wahoo, of The Briefcase, presented by Spirit Mountain Casino. I'm your host, Casey Holdahl, and we are 1 week into the Trailblazers offseason, so we'll give our thoughts on the play-in games. It's Friday, the play-in games finishing up today, leading into the NBA playoffs starting this weekend. An exciting time of year, NBA playoffs finally here. Award season almost beginning. They announced the finalists for many of the end-of-season awards on Sunday. A few Trailblazers have already been given smaller awards, more local awards, but we'll talk about those as well. As I mentioned on the last edition, we will wrap up our betting on the Blazers segment for this season, and we'll hear from Anfernee Simons and Scoot Henderson's exit interviews on this edition of The Briefcase, presented by Spirit Mountain Casino. Well, the NBA postseason, not the playoffs, the postseason, got off to a start in earnest on Tuesday with the play-in games. I believe there's 3 play-in games per conference, I think, and so 2 of those happened the other day, and now they will play the other ones on Friday. It is Friday. NBA playoffs start this weekend as well, an exciting time of year. Should be an exciting NBA playoffs. The East kind of feels like it's going to be between the Celtics and the Cavs, but out in the West, I think you could make a strong case for 3 or 4 teams coming out of the West. So it should be an interesting playoffs. It's always a fun playoff. And I think the first round of the NBA playoffs this year might be more exciting than a general first round of the NBA playoffs. Just because, again, at least in the West, there's so much parity. There's not one team that's really separated themselves. I mean, I guess the Thunder have by terms of their record. But again, I don't think anyone looks at the Thunder and says that they're the odds-on favorite to come out of the West. I think there's, obviously there's a couple teams that could do that. And so it should be an exciting time. NBA playoffs get started this weekend, but the NBA play-in has already been going. Started on Tuesday, the 8th seed Hawks defeated the 7th seed, lost to the 7th seed Magic, 120-95. And then the 7th seed Warriors defeated the 8th seed Grizzlies, 121-116 in the West. Should mention, too, in that East game, Hawks versus the Magic, that the Magic won. Blazers went 4-0 versus those teams this season, as I mentioned on Twitter, which really just goes to show just how much better the West is than the East. Trailblazers didn't get into the play-in, finished, I think, tied for 11th this season in the West. Meanwhile, you have the Hawks and the Magic, 2 teams that would be towards the bottom of the table in the West at 7th and 8th in the East. If there wasn't the play-in, they would have already been in the playoffs anyways. So just goes to show that, the Blazers are making progress, and you should feel good about that progress, regardless what other teams are doing. But if the Blazers were in the East, they'd be a playoff team this year. So I don't know if that makes you feel any better or worse about it, but it just goes to show that they are actually making progress. They are getting better. That's just life in the West. So as I mentioned, Orlando and Golden State, those teams end up getting the 7th seed in their respective conferences. They will face the Celtics and the Rockets respectively. So Orlando gets Boston. That's an incredibly tough draw. I think Boston's probably the team to come out of the East, in my personal opinion, and probably the opinion of just about anyone else who covers the NBA as well, except for maybe some folks who live in Cleveland. And then Golden State gets the Rockets in the 2-7 in the West, and that's one where I don't know. Obviously, you got a Warriors team that has a lot of experience, probably has the best player in the series in Steph Curry, maybe even the 2 best players in the series. If you, depending on your opinion, Jimmy Butler, I suppose. And usually the team that has the best and second best team or players are usually the team that wins that series. I think the Rockets probably have more broad talent. Warriors have a lot more experience. The Rockets don't really have a whole lot of playoff experience as of late. So that's, as I mentioned, playoffs should be exciting this year. And that's one where, maybe I'll do some playoff picks on the next edition, though that doesn't really work because playoffs were already started by then. But either way, should be exciting stuff. So those teams squared away in the play-in. And then the next day, on Wednesday, the 10-seed Heat beat the 9-seed Bulls 109-90. So Chicago is out of the postseason. And the 10-seed Mavs beat the 9-seed Kings 120-106. Means that Sacramento is out as well, as is their general manager, Monte McNair, who was let go, I believe, the day after they lost in the play-in. I'm guessing quite a few changes are going to be going in at Sacramento. So they get the 9 seed, but get bounced. The Mavs continue their season on as well, as do the Heat. So Friday, The Hawks will host the Heat, 4 p.m. start time on TNT for that one, and the Grizzlies host the Mavs for the last spot in the Western Conference playoffs, 6:30 on ESPN for that one as well. As I mentioned, winners get the 8 seed, losers are done for the season. Mavs Grizzlies there, obviously, the Mavs trying to save their season after that trade, and probably quite a few people in the Mavericks organization trying to save some face by hopefully getting into the postseason. If the Mavs end up getting into the playoffs as the 8 seed, I don't think it probably makes a whole lot of Mavs fan feel a whole lot better about the Luka trade, but at least at that point in time, you have a little bit of success you can point to. Um, if they don't, I mean, it's tough either way, but at least if you make the playoffs, you got a little something you can you end on a bit of a positive note in a season that I'm guessing a lot of Mavericks fans don't feel all that positive about. And then you got the Grizzlies, who, the Grizz, I think a team that, a few years ago, even last season, they were the team that everyone thought was going to be the kind of the next up next in the Western Conference. Hasn't really played out that way for a whole host of reasons. Obviously, they make a coaching change a few weeks ago as well. So if they happen to get bounced from the postseason, you imagine probably quite a few changes in Memphis, maybe quite a few changes in Memphis regardless, but either way, a lot riding on those playing games, I would imagine. So some pretty interesting watching on Friday night, leading into the playoffs, starting on Saturday as well. Also wanted to give a quick shout out to our friend and former player, Damian Lillard. Congratulations, Dame. Has that thrombosis issue that he was dealing with, blood clots, basically. And it sounds like that has been resolved through treatment and a whole host of other things. Sounds like Dame's maybe going to miss some of the first round, but will be available when the Bucks and the Pacers play starting here this weekend as well at some point in time in the series. So I'm glad to hear you're doing well, Dame. Hopefully you're able to stay healthy. Don't put yourself in a bad position there, my guy. But good news there. Obviously, one, just from a personal perspective, you want to see Dame do well. You don't want to see someone have medical issues like that, particularly medical issues that are actually life-threatening. And two, you just like to see teams actually having their full complement of players when they get to the postseason. Makes for a better postseason for all the viewers, even those of us who don't have rooting interests. So it should be fun, should be interesting, and I'm really looking forward to the NBA playoffs. We'll be talking about the playoffs here on the briefcase as they go on. So check those out. Friday play-in games leading into Saturday, the start of the 2025 NBA playoffs. Well, now that the regular season is over, a lot of the attention will turn to some of the offseason awards outside of the NBA playoffs, of course. And as I mentioned, a lot of those are getting announced. At least the finalists for those are getting announced on Sunday. A few years ago, they decided to turn everything into some kind of TV event. So now they just don't announce who won the awards, but they announce finalists for the awards and they trickle those out as the offseason goes on. Fine. Those folks pay a whole lot of money for the rights to the NBA, and they want to squeeze every last dollar out of it. So fine, if we're going to have finalists for awards, fine. So that happens on Sunday. And, the Trailblazers probably not up for a whole lot of awards this season. We're keeping our fingers crossed for Toumani and Defensive Player of the Year. But I really do think, as I mentioned a couple of times, all NBA defense is something that is very reasonable for Toumani this season. In fact, I'd be a little surprised if he didn't make an all NBA team from a defensive perspective. All NBA defense, I should say. He's not going to make an all NBA team. I know that for a fact. But all defense, I think I think bare minimum Toumani is on that, and a chance defensive player of the year. Again, I think that's probably an outside chance, but I think he's definitely going to get some votes for it. Which for a team that hasn't had anyone, I think that's even been all NBA defense in over a decade, maybe even close to 2 decades now. That'd be a good thing. So fingers crossed for that one. I don't know. I think maybe Deni might get some most improved player. He had probably a better case last year. Last year was when he kind of made his big bump statistically. And there hasn't really been much of a push for that, but I could, to me, it seems like Deni has been one of the most improved players in the NBA this season, so I could see him getting some votes for that. But outside of that, I think it's going to be probably pretty lean for the Trailblazers in terms of the offseason awards. But there have been a few small local awards that a number of players have received as of late that kind of fell through the cracks a little bit. So I want to make sure those guys are getting their due as well. So first off, as was announced at the finale, Deni Avdija named the 2025 Maurice Lucas Award winner, which goes to the player who, quote, best represents the indomitable spirit of Maurice Lucas. My guy right there, through his contributions on and off the court, as well as his support of his teammates and the organization. In recognition of the award, the Trailblazers made a $5,000 donation to a nonprofit of Deni's choice. A little more press release here. Since arriving in Portland last summer, Deni has engaged and embraced the Portland community, diving deep into the relationship between the team and its fans. That makes Rip City's roots run deep. Spent a lot of time on the lake too. So shout out to Deni for that. I always appreciate it when guys take advantage of some of the nature we have here in Oregon. And I've seen multiple photos of Deni, actually probably out on the river, on the Willamette. I mean, maybe he spent some time at Lake Oswego. It's so weird calling it Lake Oswego too, by the way. No offense to anyone who lives out there, but and I know that it's open to everybody now. I know that was something you guys were fighting against, but Oregon's got some pretty strict laws when it comes to waterways. They have to be available for all, which is one of the great laws in Oregon actually as well. So just deal with it, folks. Not like people are going to be driving speedboats on Lake Oswego, but either way, Deni has been out there. I love to see guys getting out and enjoying some of the natural wonders that we have here in Oregon. Deni has done that, so shout out to him for that. Deni has also participated in multiple community events throughout the season, including the annual Fred Meyer Season of Giving event, where he connected with a local family from Naya, which is a Native American Youth Family Center, just down the road here, actually, to assist in their holiday shopping. Last month, Deni also matched up with middle schoolers and staff at POIC, Portland Opportunities Industrialization Center, for a fun day of bowling at Big Al's, showing off his lighthearted, fun side while still displaying his trademark competitive nature. That's one thing about NBA players, too. They love to win. So even if they're bowling against kids, they're going to try to win those games. They don't let people beat them. That's kind of that's a hallmark of professional athletes. So shout out to you, Deni, for being the Maurice Lucas 2025 Player of the Year. Also coming in late, Anfernee Simons was awarded the NBA Cares Bob Lanier Community Assist Award for the month of March. Shout out to you, Ant. That is fantastic. He got this, some more press release here, for as a part of his efforts, Simons provided scholarships to 24 students supporting mental health well-being and hosted holiday events in Portland and his home state of Florida. Anfernee will receive the David Robinson Trophy, and the NBA will donate $10,000 to Be a Light, an organization that supports at-risk youth and youth adults. So you get a fun little trophy too. That's cool. I'd like to see what the David Robinson Trophy looks like. I don't think I've ever seen that before. Anfernee contributed $45,000 in scholarships to students pursuing higher education based on their personal proposals and need for financial aid, which is fantastic. Like to have kids kind of like go through the process of like, this is why I would like this scholarship, and then kind of the process of going through those. I think that's awesome. Like it's just giving them money is great. Like it's great. Anyone needs it. You find a good organization, give them money. They know what they're doing. Let them do their thing. But also have a little bit of involvement in that too, I think is great. So shout out to you, Anfernee. Each year, Simons hosts the Be a Light Grad Bash to celebrate graduates from kindergarten to high school. The event features live music, food, games, and prizes, with each participant being recognized on stage and receiving a patch of supplies to prepare them for the next stage in their academic journey. Simons also participated in World Mental Health Day at the Blazers Boys and Girls Club. This event provided a safe and open environment for a conversation around mental health, helping to break the negative stigma and offering young people tools and resources to prioritize their mental well-being. Simons' leadership in this event made an impact difference in educating young individuals in the community. Shout out to you, Anfernee. That's great. I know that mental health and kind of dealing with kind of some of the pressures that people endure is something that Anfernee has an interest in, something I think he's probably got a little personal experience in as well. So really glad to see Ant get rewarded or just recognized for all the work he does in the community, because he's also a guy too. He does a lot of stuff in the community, both here in Oregon and in Florida. And basically, he's one of those guys too. Is like, we don't need to publicize this. I just want to do it because I want to do it. So, really happy for Ant. Congratulations to you, more than deserving for that, Anfernee Simons. And at least in terms of on the court, we did have one other thing to mention as well. Rip City Remix, some of the players getting recognized for their efforts this season. NBA G League announced that Rip City Remix two-way guard Bryce McGowans has been named the All-NBA G League second team, and guard Isaac Nogués González has been named All-NBA G League defensive team. This marks the first time in franchise history that a Rip City Remix player has been named to any All-NBA G League team. Boy, that's hard to say. All NBA G League team. There you go. McGowans became the remix's all-time leading scorer this season, recording 846 points in just 30 appearances, averaging 28.2 points, 3.7 rebounds, 3.4 assists, and 1.7 steals per game across the regular season and the tip-off tournament. Do not ask me to explain the tip-off tournament and the regular season in the G League. It is a complete mystery to me. His accolades also include being selected to compete in the Castrol Rising Stars event at the 2025 NBA All-Star Weekend. Hit the game winner to advance in the Rising Stars Challenge, by the way, too, in that first game versus Toumani Camara, for those of you who were watching. I was one of those people. And he was also named the G League Player of the Week for performances between January 27th and February 2nd, 2005. The Nebraska alum suffered a season-ending rib injury in March. Unfortunately, that kept Bryce from being able to play later on the season. I'm guessing we probably would have seen quite a bit of Bryce in the last couple of weeks of the NBA season. Unfortunately, he was not able to do that because of suffering a rib injury. That's 2 years in a row now. The Trailblazers have had a player who suffered a rib injury late in the season. Last year it was Toumani Camara. This year, Bryce McGowans. Protect those ribs, guys. Maybe wearing flak jackets or something like that, though. It's got to be hard to move around with those kind of things. Nogués González was defensive force for the remix this year, finishing with the season averaging 5.2 rebounds, 3.9 assists, 2.1 steals, and 21.1 minutes. In 40 appearances this season. He ended the season as the team's leader in steals, averaging 82, totaling 82 over the year. The 21-year-old also finished third in voting in G League Defensive Player of the Year. Boy, that's impressive. Congratulations to you. And broke the NBA G League single game record with 10 steals on December 7th versus Santa Cruz Warriors. 10 steals in a game is absolutely ridiculous. He has declared his eligibility for the 2025 NBA draft later this summer, which is cool too. I'd like to see, that's kind of a little bit of a, you don't hear a lot about players playing in the G League and then trying to get drafted. Usually you get drafted, then you play in the G League. So yeah, shout out to you, Isaac Nogués González. That's awesome. So congratulations to all those players, to Bryce, to Isaiah, Isaac. So shout out to all those players, to Isaac, Bryce, Deni, and Anfernee on being awarded for their efforts this season, both on and off the court. It's always nice to see people get a little recognition for the things they've done, and hopefully more recognition for some of the things Trailblazers have done in those postseason awards. Those are a ways off from now. But they are, as I mentioned, being announced on Sunday, at least the finals for those awards. So if you're happening to watch the playoffs on Sunday during Easter, shout out to those of you celebrating Easter, by the way. Maybe flip on over to TNT and check out who is going to be up for some of those awards. And fingers crossed that Toumani at least makes it as a finalist for Defensive Player of the Year, which we'll find out on Sunday. Well, now that offseason is here, I've got a little more time to myself, and some of that time I like to spend heading out to Spirit Mountain Casino, which features hundreds of state-of-the-art slot games, including brand new games like Phoenix Link. Whether you're into traditional slots or progressive jackpots, Spirit Mountain Casino is here to elevate your game. Spirit Mountain Casino, Highway 18 in Grand Ronde. Fantastic casino, fantastic people, elevate your game. And speaking of wagering, let's wrap up our betting on the Blazers segment for the 2024-25 season. So as you may or may not know, the Trailblazers covered in 5 of their last 7 games to improve to 46, 35, and 1 versus the spread during the 2024-25 season. So 11 more wins versus the spread. So if you bet the Trailblazers consistently this season, you probably did pretty well. If you bet the over this season, you did well as well. The Trailblazers easily surpassing the over. Only the Thunder, who were 55, had 55 wins versus the spread. The Raptors, that had 48 wins versus the spread, and the Cavs also had 48 wins versus the spread, were better bet this season than the Portland Trailblazers. So once again, Trailblazers finished 4th in the NBA in terms of covering the spread, which, as the old saying goes, good teams win, great teams cover. Trailblazers not yet a great team. Maybe a good team, but they did a great job covering this season. So if you were betting on the Portland Trailblazers this year, you did pretty well. Maybe that might have softened some of your some of the losses too. One of the great feelings is to be rooting for a team and have them not win, which you would prefer. But if your bet still wins, a little something to salve the pain of losing that game. So as I mentioned, Trailblazers, the 4th best bet in the NBA this season versus the spread. And I did mention their season win projection over under. Blazers finished the season with 36 wins, which outperformed their Vegas projection by 22 games by 14 wins. So the Blazers were expected to win 22 games this year. They won 36 games this year. That is a 14 win better than, which is pretty good. That's the third best overperformance from the preseason projections in the NBA this season. The Pistons get the top spot. They had 22 more wins than their season projection. They were projected, like the Trailblazers, to win 22.5 games this year. They ended up winning 44 games this year. Went on that great run. Last year they had lost, I think, 13 games in a row. This year they had an extended win streak. So they went from a team that I think a lot of people assumed was maybe going to tank for another season, or maybe just didn't have the talent to really. They kind of caught lightning in a bottle. Cade Cunningham is putting it on, and now they're in the playoffs. So the Pistons did the best job of overperforming this season. As I mentioned, they were projected to win 22 games, and they won 44 games. So doubling your win projection. That is if you bet the over for the Pistons, you should actually get a little something extra for that, for them to go double what their win projection was this season. The Cavs also were a team that won more than their win projection. They had the second most wins over its projection, 17 more wins than they were projected. They were projected to win 47.5 games this year, and they won a whole lot more than that. Definitely probably one of a very regular season team is what I would say about the Cavaliers. Like they're a team where, like, could they come out of the East? Absolutely. Do I think they're going to? No. And I really don't think they're going to come out of the East. They just seem constructed like a regular season team to me. Obviously, Donovan Mitchell is great. They don't have another guy after that who I think you feel real confident that he goes get you a bucket. I mean, Ty Jerome's been great this year, but I don't think he's going to be that guy in the playoffs. They've got great bigs. They play good defense. But I just don't really see it. But they did a heck of a job in the regular season. As I mentioned, they were projected to win 47.5 games, and they won 17 games more than that. So they are second in terms of passing the projection, but the Trailblazers were third after that. And this year, it really seemed like the teams that overperformed were mostly good teams that got a whole lot better. So teams like the Thunder, the Cavs, and the Rockets, they all vastly overperformed their projections this season. Rather than bad teams that got better. Basically, the Pistons and the Blazers were only two teams that I would say, you look at where they were projected, what they were projected to do this season from a win-loss perspective compared to what they did. So most of the overperformers were already really good teams, and they just were really good. And I think a lot of that is due to the Eastern Conference and how many teams in the East weren't trying to win games this year. So, your team like the Cavaliers, or just any team in the East that's good, that's trying to win, you got a whole bunch of just baked in wins because the bottom four teams really weren't trying. Obviously, you had some of that in the West too, but not nearly the same level. And again, even the teams that were kind of sort of trying are still a whole lot better than in the West than the teams that are kind of sort of trying in the East. So not really surprising to see that the East had more teams that overperformed because they're playing a lot of other teams that vastly underperformed. So, for example, the 76ers won half the games that they were projected to win this season. As to the Pelicans, though, Pelicans also won half the game. So you got teams like the Pelicans and the Jazz in the West. And then you got teams like the 76ers and the Wizards and a whole host of other teams in the East that were just, I mean, the 76ers were going into the season trying. They had injury issues. And that's the other thing, too. Same with the Pelicans. Teams that have, a whole lot of injury issues go from having a projection that makes some sense to that thing really spiraling out of control. And there's also the thing, too, in the NBA, which is once it's very obvious that your season is not going to be what you were hoping was going to be, a lot of teams at that point decide to just throw it right into the dumpster. There's not even like, well, maybe we'll kind of just try to keep playing it out. A lot of teams these days just decide to go the other direction. Not especially good for the league in one man's personal opinion, but when you have a league that has a lot of perverse incentives in terms of the draft, you understand why teams go that direction. So that's it for the Trailblazers betting on the Blazers segment for 2024-25. Long story short, Trailblazers were a good bet versus the spread, a good bet in the season over under. And I imagine that their projections for next season are going to be quite a bit more. So you'll need to be savvy and on your research in order to do that for next season. But if you bet the Trailblazers consistently this year, you probably made money. Good for you. I'm happy for you. Obviously, this is just for entertainment purposes only. This is not advice. I do not bet on the NBA. I do not give you advice. I just tell you what happened. And finally, let's go ahead and get to the exit interviews. We're going to be just going through some of these exit interviews, a few at a time as we roll out our end of the season coverage here on the briefcase. Obviously, these have already been posted, so you've seen some of these, but if not, a chance to catch up on what some of the players said at the end of the season. We did it on Sunday afternoon too, so I think maybe they might have kind of got lost in the shuffle a little bit. So first off, we're just going to go positionally. So we're going to hear from the point guards first. So Anfernee Simons and Scoot Henderson discussing their seasons. First up, Anfernee talking about Chauncey getting his extension, which, as we talked about in the last edition of the briefcase, every single player was very excited for Chauncey getting that extension. Which I think is probably one of the reasons why he got that extension. So Ant talks about that, how his season played out. He talks about kind of learning a lot this season, kind of an up and down season for Ant. I think that he would probably cop to that as well. He talks about his place within the organization, his plans for the offseason, Shaedon Sharpe, and just his general feel on the 2024-25 season. So here's Anfernee Simons discussing the 2024-25 season at exit interviews on Sunday.
Your thoughts on Chauncey?
On the extension? No, I'm very happy about that. I said I told Kevin on the broadcast today, I was like, just the opportunity for him to show what he can do this year. That I was really excited about. Guys being healthy finally, and we have a whole group, and he's able to kind of imprint his philosophies on a lot of the young guys. So I was pretty happy about that. Just seeing how far he's come as a coach.
Did you expect him to be re-signed, or were you nervous about it?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it was kind of up in the air, but obviously, having a big of an improvement from last season to this season, I think that helped us out a lot. Helped him out.
Was that something that came? Obviously you all know that he's in the final year of his contract, and nobody really knows what's going to happen this summer. Was that something that kind of presented itself during the season that you guys talked about or thought about at all? Or was it
obviously, everybody kind of knew, but obviously we didn't know until it became official that he got the extension. But everybody knew kind of silently that it was a kind of a quote unquote contract year for him.
How has this season been for you, Ant? It started off rough, and you rounded more back into what you've known, and then in the season a little dinged up. But when you look back at the season, what do you kind of take from it?
I learned a lot. About the team, about myself individually. Just going through the ebbs and flows of the season. I said that it was one of my, the toughest season I've had, just mentally, just adjusting to everything that's, was being thrown at me. Obviously, like I said, always said we, implemented kind of a new offense. We playing much faster. That means, whoever gets the ball goes. And so, once you've been used to playing like kind of half-court offense your first 6 years in the league, it's kind of hard to adjust because that's how I learned the NBA game was through, running sets. You know what I mean? So that was pretty hard for me. But I feel like I figured it out kind of midway through the season, and just, trying to figure it out from there. And also, obviously, we got a lot of young guys that are, very talented and want to implement themselves on the team and in the league in general. So, it's a lot of room for them to become that and show that what they can do. So, I feel pretty good about going out of the season. I think I've improved in a lot of areas, and I'm happy that I was able to come out and be successful in it.
Do you like the role that you settled into, and long term, do you think, considering all the other young guys on the team, you have like a clear vision of where you fit with your organization long term?
Yeah, I mean, it's always going to be like you're trying to obviously figure it out. But like I always said, I always just try to do my part and show up each and every day, and whatever decision they make or not, I just you gotta obviously live with it. You can't really have that much control over it. So like I say, I try to come in each and every day and be professional and try to play my best each and every night.
Chauncey coached this year with 1 year left, with an option year. You have 1 year left, so it sounds like though that you're not going to let that burden you at all.
Obviously you can. Obviously you have some control over some things, but like I said, all you can do is just play your best when you go out there, and let my agent do everything else. Have conversations, but I would say that's his job. You know what I mean? That's what I pay him for. So.
We all know that losing has been a little burdensome for you, but you guys, nice end of this season. Joe's talking about next year the bar being, depending on how the offseason goes, the playoffs. Do you feel like this team is on the verge of pushing into the playoffs? And not just the play-in, the playoffs.
No, for sure. I think there's a lot to build off this year. We've had a rough couple of years, obviously, and having this big of a improvement from last year. I think at the beginning of the season we probably wouldn't say that, but I think we figured it out halfway through the season after those tough conversations, and we kind of established how we want to play each and every night. And I think that doesn't change going into next year. I think a lot of guys got better this past all season, and I expect them to get even better. Everybody to get better this offseason as well. So I hope to see obviously a much more improvement individually, and then obviously we got close this year. So I think it's only right for us to expect us to be in that conversation next year for most of the year.
You're one of the few vets. What does your offseason look like now as you go into another year?
Rest. Rest for maybe a couple of weeks, and then kind of gradually build up until obviously when the season start next year. So that's usually how I approach it.
How much did you think Shaedon grew this year, and how did you feel he handled being taken from the starting lineup? It seemed like he responded pretty well.
Yeah, I think he responded well. I came up here one time and said that this was that type of situation. You find out a lot about yourself when it's quote unquote adversity or things aren't going particularly your way. I think he handled it well, and obviously we just needed Shaedon to be healthy, for a long period of time, and for everybody to see, how talented he is, how good he is, and so I expect next year to be even better coming into next year, and he got a full year of playing underneath his belt, and those times you can really see what you need to get better at and kind of improve from there.
Did any of the young guys kind of jump out to you, their progress from start of the season to end of the season?
I think everybody showed Shaedon, Donovan. He slowly began to understand how to be effective on both ends of the court as a big in the league. And Scoot, he was coming on the bench and playing extremely well. So I think all the young guys, even Roops, this past couple of games, he showed us how talented he is and how good he can be. So I think. From everybody, I think you see the improvements and you see how hard they work during the season, even when, they might not be playing or, might not be playing as well during that time. But I think for most of the part, all of our young guys are hard workers, and they always going to accept coaching and continue to improve their games.
And there you go. Anfernee Simons discussing his season on Sundays, exit interviews. I feel like Ant is really the growth that he's made in terms of kind of his perspective, I think is great. I think there's been some frustrations for Ant over the last couple of seasons, which you understand too. He comes into the league, he's making the playoffs every single year. Last 4 seasons, that has not been the case. I think that can be hard for a player who's accustomed to making the postseason regularly. And just kind of the feeling when a team is kind of changing directions a little bit and adding players and adding talent and kind of figuring out where everyone kind of fits in that shuffle. That can be difficult, particularly for guys who have been with the team for an extended period of time, as Anfernee has. So I think the kind of the perspective that he's taken from this season, and I think maybe understanding where he's at in his career and maybe kind of accepting a few things and being okay with those things, I think is something that Ant has done this season. And I think it's really going to put him in a good footing going into next season. And another who's should be better off next season than was this season, Scoot Henderson. Let's go ahead and hear from him. I would say Scoot really made a lot of progress this year. I would say definitely an improvement over his rookie season, particularly after the start of 2025. Between his shot and kind of the game slowing down and understanding kind of the pace of play in the NBA and how to use his acceleration, how to maybe not use his acceleration, figuring out best ways to get his teammates involved, ways that he can get his own looks as well, I think has been something that Scoot's made a lot of progress on. In his interviews, Scoot talks about the differences between his rookie and his sophomore season, particularly the game slowing down, areas of improvement this offseason. He wants to be more consistent. He wants to do a better job creating off the bounce, also wants to improve his finishing. I think finishing is one area too for Scoot, particularly at the rim, where like he could there's really a lot of progress still to be made there for Scoot, and I think it's really probably just some I won't say easy because nothing in the NBA is easy, but I think if he could just work on a few kind of habits, finishing would really go a long way to kind of getting Scoot to where he wants to go, because his shot is already improved. So if he's able to pair better finishing at the rim with his ability to hit 3-point shot now, it's really going to open up things both for Scoot and his teammates. So he talks a little about that, what his favorite part of the season was, and also, he also talks about Chauncey's extension, as every player does. So once again, here's Scoot Henderson discussing his 2024-25 season at Exit Interviews on Sunday.
Unfortunately, you can't finish up the season with a concussion, but when you take a look at this season, how different was this year for you from year one?
I say this year, I guess the game kind of slowed down. Things like that only come from playing and experiencing the NBA in general. But just playing games, playing ball at this level, I think it just slowed down, and I think I had more fun.
Is there anything specific this summer that you're looking at and saying, I need to get better at this, I need to work on this summer?
Like I always say, everything. I try to touch every aspect of the game in the summer, but I think more specifically, I say just more consistency in my technique, on my shots, where I know I'm going to get my shots from, how to create off the bounce, finishing, left hands, but off the 1-2, not off too high, all different angles on the backboard, left and right, floater, touch, continue to learn how to move my body as one, and to not like bend over while I'm running, but like I said, move my body as one, and move kind of like my body into space. Things like that. I don't know. That kind of don't make sense for y'all, but yeah, I just think about it.
What's the
Greatest answer to that question ever, by the way.
What's the thing that you enjoy the most in your second year of career?
Oh my goodness, the 10 game. That was fun. I kind of like seen a little bit of like who we are, kind of got our swag there. And man, when we get our swag like that, it's tough to stop. It's tough to stop. Fun to watch, over the film and things like that. Just fun to watch the games, and like I said, we always say, we harp on our defense, and when we play defense like that during that stretch, and throughout most of the year, really, I think we were a really solid defensive team, and that was just fun to be a part of.
You zeroed in just there on a lot of technical things with your game. Do you think that's what maybe led to some of your turnarounds, like focusing in on granular details, or was it something bigger?
No, it was exactly that. Just because obviously, everybody comes in the league with a skill, with the main skill sets, I guess, but the greats only, kind of unique in their own way, and how they move, how they go on about it, how they, break down their films and things like that. So I think, when you're at a high level like this, you have to kind of be more specific, and kind of what your role is, and how you could be great in that role and be great as a player.
Your reaction to Chauncey's contract extension today?
Man, congratulations, man. It was cool to see that. He got extended. I told him, dapped him up when I seen him, and while I was going to the weight room to get on that bike and things like that. But man, just happy for him.
Obviously, professional athletes adjust to coaching changes all the time, but how important is it to your development to maintain that relationship with the head coach and not have to have a change there?
I thought about that, and I was like, dang, that's probably like 1 in a million. It probably doesn't happen too often to where a player like me happens to run into a player like Chauncey was, and the person that he is, and the coach that he is. Just being able to kind of like pick his brain sometimes, things like that. But to also not have to like adjust to somebody different, a whole new personality, a whole new type of realm, kind of thing they're on. But I think just continuing to have Chauncey around is going to be, huge for our relationship, person to person.
Yeah. You started out a little slowly, then you had that crazy hot stretch where you were killing it. And you had a little dip there at the end. Was there a reason for that in your estimation? Were it just off stretch or?
Probably just an off stretch. I think I wasn't being as aggressive as I was. Kind of went to more like I said, less aggressive. I think that's my whole thing. The more aggressive I am, the better I play on both sides of the ball. The more aggressive I am on defense. The basketball guys always kind of help you out there as long as you're playing the game right.
How hungry are you, and how hungry do you think the team is to try and close this thing next year in the postseason?
I think we're really hungry. Dogs got to eat, so I think coming to next year, I think everybody's just going to focus and lock in. And, I think that's all we really needed to see the team that we could be, with this group specifically, to see the team that we could be, and we've seen that. And like I said, harp on our defense, things like that, but just get that swag back.
Well, there you go. Scoot Henderson discussing his season at exit interviews on Sunday. Another guy, too, in Scoot, where, really, really a bummer about that concussion. I mean, obviously, anytime you get a concussion, any kind of injury, that's a bummer. But, to have it late in the season, the way that Scoot did, kind of keeping him from having an opportunity to play some more extended minutes at the end of the season, not great there. But, not something I think is really going to stunt his growth. Obviously, this is also a dog in my lap, too. This is Louise. They've been harassing me about not having gone out yet, so I let her sit on my lap. Francis is right there as well, my basset hound, who had surgery earlier on this week as well. So a lot of catching up to do once the offseason starts here for those of us who work in the NBA. Season kind of takes over our lives for 6-7 months, and then once it ends, you can kind of get to some of the things that you have not been able to get to before. So that includes sitting with the dogs and getting surgery done on the dogs as well. And Louise probably grunting into the microphone, which is probably bothersome for those of you, and I apologize for that. But, again, it's my off season too. And that's going to do it for this edition of The Briefcase, presented by Spirit Mountain Casino. Thank you so much for joining me, as always. Back with new episodes next week, talking about the NBA playoffs. Hopefully, maybe some good stuff to talk about in terms of the NBA awards. Fingers crossed for Toumani at least getting as a finalist for NBA Defensive Player of the Year. We'll see about that this weekend. And I'm sure we'll continue to go through the exit interviews as well as we kind of wrap up the Trailblazers 2024-25 season. And, I think actually even maybe by once the play-in gets done on Friday, I would imagine next week they will probably do the draw to break the ties for lottery positioning. Trailblazers tied with the Phoenix Suns. So we'll find out which team gets the 9 spot, which team gets the 10 spot. So I think they'll probably do that next weekend once they finalized who is actually going to be in the lottery. So that's something to look out for as well. But until then, please like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Also, check us out on YouTube as well. If you're watching this, thanks so much. If you're listening, thank you so much as well. Be back next week. I'm Casey Holdahl. I gotta turn that off. I do this on Zoom. I don't know why that thumbs up thing pops up. That's the AI that's always watching as well. So for myself, for Louise, thank you so much for joining me. As always, we'll talk again soon. Go Blazers.